Hello and welcome to the latest episode of the Online Warriors podcast. It's Valentine's week, and to celebrate, we have a special edition all dudes episode. That was not intentional. Nerd Bomber is under the weather, so we wish her well. Of course, feel free to reach out to her on the social medias and send her your positive antibodies. Until then, though, I'm Illegal 86 as always, and I'm joined by my good friend Techtic.
Hello, how's it going?
I'm doing good. How are you?
I'm doing good. I had quite the week, and I hope all of you had too.
Have you been nursing Nerd Bomber back to health, or is she still on the decline?
It's funny that you asked if I've been
update.
nursing. I've been trying to nurse her back to health, but she's been very, I could do this. I can handle myself. I'm a smoker from Brooklyn kind of attitude.
See, it's funny. When a couple weeks ago, my girlfriend got sick, and pretty much the same thing. I mean, I did help, but and it was a stomach flu thing for her, which I don't think that's what Nerd Bomber has, but she essentially quarantined herself. She was and not for the benefit of my health either. It was more I'm going to go through this by myself and ride this out. And I was like, all right, I'm here if you need me. Women are tough, man. They're tough as nails.
But we try to give back, right? Be good men.
We do, and I'll say for myself, when I'm sick, I need help.
I am a giant baby when I'm sick. It's the world is falling in on itself.
I'm glad we have that in common, because I've been ruthlessly made fun of by my girlfriend for that. And I think I've only been really sick once in her presence. And she was I think she might have actually said at one point, "This is pathetic." And
but we're only sick once every 100 years. So give us a break. We're allowed to be babies.
She had stomach flu. She was spewing bodily fluids everywhere. And my immune system held up. So, once every year, maybe even not that often, once every year and a half or so, I get really sick, and my body takes it hard, and I'm not going to apologize for it. But we're not just here to talk about our immune systems. We got a great show lined up for you guys as usual. We're going to be talking about Samsung's big reveal today, the Flip Z, I believe it's called, and we're going to also be talking a little bit about the new Razr and just this new generation of flip phones, which we've talked about before, but we're going to kind of revisit that. We're going to be talking about Birds of Prey, because that opened up this past weekend, and we're going to tell you how that's doing. Hint, hint, it's not that great. And then we're gonna kind of move into what Techtic has been calling the public service announcement of the episode. And I won't broach that topic until we get to it. But let's start off with kind of the big news of today. And the day that we're recording this, Samsung had their big event today where they unveiled. It's actually called the Z Flip. So I mixed up Flip and Z. The Galaxy Z Flip, which is its second folding phone. I don't remember, or I don't know if I've even seen the first one, but this was a big unveil today. I believe the list is $1,400 just about. And Samsung so I'm going to run through some of the details here. Uses a bendable, quote unquote, ultra thin glass display. And Samsung says the new glass will last for 200,000 folds, which I want to talk about that number a little bit. Back when you had a flip phone, I don't know how long you had it. I don't know how long you had your last flip phone. How many times would you say you flipped it? Because for me, it's definitely over that number. I feel like I had to flip that phone 1,000,000 times.
So let's assume that I take it, in 1 year, you've got to at least open and close it 365 times 50 times a day. So call it 15,000 easily. And what was the number you said? 200?
200,000. So in that case, you'd be able to have it for over 10 years.
I actually think that's a good number then. It's important to math these things.
When you put it that way, but see, the part of your calculation that I take issue with is the 50 times a day, because I'm the kind of person that I will flip it idly, not for a specific reason, but I'll just be flipping it. Like how you hold a pen, you click a pen. It's the same thing. It's just like a nervous tick kind of thing. So I think I would struggle with this.
So I could have seen myself doing it. However, it's got a front-facing screen, a tiny one, but it's got one that is used to show notifications. If that wasn't there, I'd be flipping it open, checking all the time. That, in my opinion, is its saving grace to, we'll call it flipification.
So yeah, we should talk about generally the form factor and how the front looks, but just to kind of run down some more of the specs. 6.7-inch OLED display, 8 gigabytes of RAM, 256 gigabytes of storage, and a 3300 milliamp dual battery. I have no idea how good that is. Two 12 megapixel cameras on the back, a regular wide angle and an ultra wide angle. The phone does not support 5G, which kind of surprises me a little bit. And as I said, goes on sale for $1,380, which seems like a strange price point. For sale this Friday, February 14th. So get it for your sweetheart if you're the richest person in the world. But yeah, looking at some of these photos, and we kind of talked about this a little bit before coming on the air, how not great the non-screen side, like when it's closed.
It looks
not
like a beeper.
Great look.
It's ugly.
You said it looks like a beeper. I'm not even sure. Like, I guess I don't really know what beepers look like. So it's harder for me to draw that comparison. But like, it's just not much. Like, it's not much to look at. And the other flip phone that I mentioned, of course, is the Motorola Razr, which also came out, I think, pretty recently. When you look at the front of the Motorola Razr, it is very reminiscent of the original Razr. Like, there's a front to it. Like, when you're looking at it when it's closed, it looks like something. When you're looking at the Flip Z when it's closed, it just looks like you took a smartphone and you folded it in half. And I don't think that's super great. It's worth noting that the Razr hasn't gotten very good reviews. Apparently you can see the crease in the screen, which is, it's something we talked about. I think the last time we talked about foldable phones, I'm still having a hard time wrapping my head around just how the foldable glass works. I mean, it can't be glass, right? It has to be plastic. They call it glass, but is it really glass?
I couldn't tell you, but I mean, Going back and forth between the two, the Galaxy Z Flip invested a lot in that hinge feature and the thinness of the glass to make sure that the crease is virtually unnoticeable. And it seems that Razr on that face kind of fell short. And in my opinion, and I'm kind of getting ahead of you because I know you're going to rattle off the specs, it kind of fell short on almost all of the specs when compared to the Galaxy Z Flip, aside from the camera.
Yeah, so I actually don't have the specs for the Razr in front of me. Well, I will say 6.2-inch FlexView OLED screen, so actually a slightly larger screen. The camera, I don't know, it was 16 megapixels. So yeah,
camera
that is
16 megapixels. The RAM is 6 gigabytes, slightly less. The storage is 128 gigabytes, slightly less. No wireless charging, no expandable storage, no headphone jack. And yes, granted, the other one doesn't have a headphone jack either, which, guys, stop going backwards. I want my headphone jack.
Well, taking away the headphone jack, so you're saying that is going backwards. I mean, they took the headphone jack away a while ago, right? That's not a new thing.
And I get Bluetooth.
I would like it back.
So I guess in the way we're going, we don't really need headphone jacks from a headphone standpoint. However, the no expandable storage, that's just a total Apple move, and I don't subscribe.
I mean, yeah, the Razr, and also it's worth noting something you didn't mention, one more spec. The Razr is $1,500, so it's even more expensive. I mean, I don't know. I've had an iPhone 6 for, gosh, got to be getting close to 5 years at this point, maybe even longer than that. I have no plans to upgrade, especially not for that price point. Like, if I'm going to get a new phone, I'm going to get a phone that is no more than $1,000. Even if I paid $1,000, I wouldn't feel good about it.
And here's the interesting part about this whole thing. In the same time frame, Samsung also released the S20, which their base model has 64 megapixels on the camera. It's got
5G,
8K video, 128 gigabytes of RAM, 12 gigabytes of video footage, of storage, Bluetooth share, and it has all this crazy stuff. And then guess what? The base model is only $1,000, so it's cheaper than the flip phone. So it just, I don't know who was deciding the market price points relative to each other, and it doesn't make sense to me. The Galaxy Flip should be kind of cheaper because it looks more kind of gimmicky. It's not really like this. It's not supposed to be this high technology stuff thing. It's really the glass and the hinge that's this breakthrough thing. Everything else is kind of status quo.
Well, you said it exactly. Like, you're paying this enormous upcharge for just the novelty of the Flip, which I'm kind of, and I've been skeptical every time we've talked about the resurgence of flip phones, is like, there's a nostalgia factor associated with flipping a phone. There's no doubt. And there's a satisfaction associated with the actual action.
Slam that bad boy hard.
Exactly. And that's a huge deal. But like, even considering those two things, how much do we as a society really want it back? I'm skeptical of that. I mean, if the price was right, it wouldn't hurt, but I'm also not going to pay more for it. I also want to mention too, this review that I'm reading about the Razr specifically mentions multiple times the hinge is creaky, which like I don't know. I think that's so funny.
That's a technical term.
Creaky.
Yeah.
I'm picturing like when you open your phone to answer a call, it's like opening up a door in like a haunted house. Like it's really, really creaky. But I don't know. I mean, the consensus I've seen about the Razr is either that it's not good or that it's even if it is kind of good, it's not worth $1,500. And obviously the Flip Z, we don't know yet because it literally was just revealed today. It's not even out yet. But I just don't know. I mean, like you said, why wouldn't you just buy a G20, which has 5G and all these better features? So for less.
Even that, overall, with all of these phone reveals, I'm highly underwhelmed because the S20, they highly invested into, let's give them a great camera and video and photo quality. But okay, the technology is really not that breakthrough. And yes, the Flip was the breakthrough, but why did you then take away all of the other cool features? So if they were really going to kind of lead the charge with this, don't take away stuff. You have to add, just continuous adding. It's not a give and take. If you can't do that, don't even bother releasing it. It's just not worth it.
Well, and you said it perfectly when you were talking about the headphone jack. It's like, it's pretty simple. Just don't go backwards. And this is in every way except for the Flip going backwards. So I'm skeptical. I wouldn't be surprised at all if this thing flops. And maybe, we got the Galaxy Fold initially, we got the Motorola Razr, and now we have the Z Flip. Maybe one of these will shoot the moon. One thing I know for sure is that whatever my next phone is, I'm not going to buy a phone that doesn't have 5G because 5G is going to be the next thing. And I feel like we're very close to 5G. Like 5G is already being rolled out. So why would you get a phone that doesn't have it? Let alone one that's worth $1,500, apparently.
And can I just say something? This might be an unpopular opinion,
Please.
But this is just my own opinion. If we're going to talk about a sexy Flip, wouldn't you think the vertical fold is much sexier and sleeker than the horizontal fold?
Okay, hold on a second. You're saying that their fold direction is wrong on the Z Flip? You'd fold it hot dog style, not hamburger style?
Well, picture the way that you would fold it and then just casually kind of slip it into your breast pocket. It would literally be like a pen.
Like a pen?
Yes.
Gosh, I've never thought about that before.
It would fit in pockets better. It would allow you. It would not be this clunky brick. It would just look sexier. I don't know. I'm a hashtag the vertical Flip.
So there could, this is a good opportunity. Let us know on the social medias. Hit us up on the social medias and let us know whether you want a phone with a hot dog style flip or a hamburger style flip. And if you don't know what I mean,
better
by
hashtag the hot dog phone.
I mean, that you're familiar with that term, right? That was like an elementary school thing. Teachers would tell you to fold the paper hot dog style or hamburger style.
No, I didn't go to McDonald's School of Education, but sure.
Oh, well, you missed out. McNuggets 101 was wild. I don't know. I mean, I've never thought about it. Every time I've looked at a new flip phone like this, that flip just seems natural. But there could be a hardware reason. B, it could be so that the crease, because like when you have a crease just in the middle, going across the middle of the screen horizontally, there are ways that like you can avoid that crease. Right? Like with certain apps can be like, oh, let's avoid the crease, put all our things up here and down here and like avoid the crease. When it's going right down the middle vertically, you can't really avoid it. And I don't know if Samsung is thinking with developers in mind. They're probably not. But this is a good point, and we want to hear from you, the listeners, on our social medias, at OWLegal86, at OWTechtic, and at OWNerdbomber, even though she's fallen ill. I'm sure she'd love to hear from you. Are you a hot dog phone person or a hamburger phone person? Hashtag the vertical flip, hashtag horizontal flip, hashtag hot dog flip. I don't know. How many hashtags do you want to throw at this?
So many hashtags.
So we'll see. We'll see about this. I am super skeptical. I also don't know. I mean, how well did the Galaxy Fold even do? Do we? I don't have the answer to that in front of me, but apparently it did well enough for the Flip Z to come out and apparently be this like flagship thing that Samsung was unveiling. Maybe it's just in the interest of competition with Motorola, or maybe they just really want to make this work because they've sunk so much R&D into it.
I mean, I like the idea of outside thinking. I just, like I said, it always goes back to give us more. Don't play this checks and balances nonsense. It's just,
at the end of the day, it's a user experience thing, right? Like, am I going to get more as a user out of being able to flip my phone open and closed, or like having twice as much memory and a camera that's twice as good? I feel like it's the latter.
I don't want my friends to look like potatoes in my photos. That's kind of important to me. But
Right,
hey,
and
all my friends might look like potatoes in real life. I'll never tell.
that's true too. And maybe a potato looks better when you're looking at it on a flip phone versus on a regular phone. Hashtag potato phone. So, we're gonna leave it there with the flip phones. But yeah, do hit us up and let us know, especially if you're planning on buying one of these. We'd love to hear from you. But in general, maybe we'll see more of these in the future or less. Time and the market will tell. Let's move on now and talk a little bit about Birds of Prey. So Birds of Prey, obviously one of the biggest openings at the box office this past weekend, actually did finish number one, finished with 33 million domestically. Now it was projected to earn between 50 and 55 million in its opening weekend. Underperformed, and it's actually DC's worst opening ever. So there's a lot to talk about here. I think I'd like to try to diagnose what went wrong here, because if you look at the Rotten Tomatoes scores and you look at the general critical consensus, people like it. People think the film is very good. I don't know about audiences, but critics say, yeah, it's great, go see it. And yet here we are, and it's underperforming. And its budget was reportedly 82 million, so it's probably going to, well, I don't want to say it's probably going to. It may bomb, is my point. Now,
I think they'll break even, honestly.
But for a superhero, supposedly a tentpole movie, it's a comic book franchise. It's supposed to do better than that. Is this what finally makes Warner Brothers pull the plug on this? I really doubt it. But I don't know. You mentioned to me that you saw this.
Yes. So I think that it's going to do better because of the title change, honestly. And that sounds ridiculous, but I think the title incorrectly portrayed what the movie was actually about. I think the decision to change it to Harley Quinn Birds of Prey was very, very important, because it was really a movie showcasing the main character, Harley Quinn, what's going on in her mind, and then she kind of meets her ragtag team of misfits, hashtag Birds of Prey, in the very end.
So much hashtagging.
Yeah, so much. And what's really great about this movie is the lessons learned from the first one were taken and used here, and that's Margot Robbie is a great Harley Quinn. Everyone loved Harley Quinn. Everyone hated everything else, so let's just focus on Harley Quinn.
So by the first one, you mean Suicide Squad.
Correct.
I do want to, you mentioned what the title was changed to, which you said Harley Quinn Birds of Prey is what the movie is now called, which changing a title after release is a pretty unprecedented move in general. The initial title was Birds of Prey and the Fantabulous Emancipation of One Harley Quinn. Now that last, everything but the Birds of Prey is in parentheses. You seem to think that they changed the title to what it is because they wanted to bank on Harley Quinn being a likable character, especially as she's envisioned by Margot Robbie. I think they might have just changed the title because the initial title is stupidly long. I mean, it does mention Harley Quinn, but not until the very end. People literally might not read that long, right?
Yeah.
So you think that they just put Harley Quinn right at the front because that's what the movie is really about?
I would have even went one step further and just called it Harley Quinn, or even Quinn would have been a neat title.
Right. Go the Joker route, basically.
Now, that said, I don't think it was a perfect movie. Black Mask's character certainly could have been further developed. It was basically, hey, we got some bad guys. We need to make a real bad guy so that no one likes this bad guy. And they didn't really touch on his character at all. And for those of you who don't know anything about Black Mask, well, I'm going to give you a little bit of a backstory.
I'd like that.
So Black Mask was...
You might even call it a black story.
Was from a wealthy family. He was neglected as a child from parents who only cared about their status, and that was it. So if some kind of issue had happened through to their neglecting parents, like let's say this is actually what happened, he got attacked by a raccoon, they would hide that because they don't want people to think that they're bad people. They don't want their image to be tarnished. So there's a metaphor there, right? He hated the mask that they wore in the public eye to show that they were these loving, great people. And then so he built resentment for them and ultimately ended up burning down his house and killing both of his parents. Then that led him to taking over the family business. And this is where his story kind of gets corny. He invested in a Black Mask face paint company for makeup and just rushed it to market, and that product horribly disfigured many women, and so that tarnished his reputation. In a fit of rage, he spiraled and just said, screw it, I'm going to become the Black Mask, because that metaphor again. His story always just goes back to this mask, his parents' mask, this literal black mask product. I mean, all of those things could have been more heavily done and probably done better from a cinematic stance and made you hate but also kind of feel for the real bad guy.
So he didn't get enough of backstory is part of what your diagnosis is.
That's part of it, but I'm kind of circling back with his story is a bit of a challenge to make seem badass because it's also kind of whiny. But then the biggest complaint that I had is the plot. And I know I'm saying that complaint. Yeah, I know saying that it's a good movie because it was a good movie if you focused on Harley. When you add the villain side of it, the plot is literally this. Kid pickpocketed a diamond from a real bad guy, and the movie was about the real bad guy trying to get his diamond back. How many times has that been done where someone shouldn't have took something they took, and then now he's mad?
Right.
That's been done time and time again, and it's nothing original. It's weak, and I would have just focused on Harley because people love. That's why Joker did so well. They like going into the brain of psychopaths.
Maybe even just one. Yeah, maybe even just focusing on one character instead of, I think this is another example. I didn't see it, so I can't really diagnose what might have gone wrong with it, or even marketing-wise what went wrong with it. But I think this is maybe another example, the latest one, of DC saying, we're going to skip a lot of origin story and just throw as many characters in a movie as we can. And that results in things that are not as insightful as character studies like Joker, and Joker, granted, is a totally different comic book movie than every other comic book movie. But if you want,
let's talk about another comic book movie though. Shazam did awesome, and they dove full head into his backstory.
Well, and that's what I'm saying is that these movies need to do that instead of just saying, we're going to throw every single character we can. And I've been saying this since I saw Justice League, which I did see Justice League and I didn't like it. Like DC wants the Avengers without having to earn them. And it's hard for me to look at this and see it failing and not think it's just another example of that syndrome. Another thing we should talk about, though, is the fact that this got an R rating. And that's still, besides Joker and Deadpool, that's still kind of an uncommon approach. And Logan, too, I should mention. It's an uncommon approach to this genre of movie. Do you think, regardless of having seen the movie and saying how the movie was, do you think that could be a component to why it's not doing as well? Do you think Harley Quinn, the demographic of people that like Harley Quinn, do you think it's too young for an R-rated movie?
I honestly think this movie easily could have been PG-13, and the R rating is more of a gimmick than anything. It didn't, the content didn't really per se add that much that made it, this was way
Make
too
it gritty.
Yeah, no one really got murdered from Harley, like directly. There were some scenes where she was shooting fake bullets at cops and not really killing them. She blew up a factory, but it didn't really say, "Hey, there's workers here." I'm just going to assume it was an empty factory. Let's just, for my sanity's sake, say there was no innocent bystanders in there. Everyone's okay.
Well, and I do have to bring up one specific thing, though, because I didn't see the movie, and if you are planning on going to see this, turn your volume down for like 20 seconds. Did you hear about the grenade part? Because I heard that part was like really gross, and that was like the main reason it got an R rating.
It didn't add anything.
So you're saying it wasn't integral to the story. It didn't have to be. I
think the mental inside of what's going on in Harley is, and yeah, that seems part of it, but all in all, I could have went without it and gone another route with her psychosis and easily still been PG-13.
Right. So yeah, and again, it's hard for me to. I feel like what DC is doing, what Warner Brothers is doing, is they're looking at things that Marvel is doing well. They're looking at Avengers. They're looking at Deadpool. They're looking at Logan. And granted, Logan and Deadpool are X-Men properties, but you get the idea. They're looking at these things and they're saying, wow, those did so great. Critically they were great. And they made, in the case of Avengers, like billions of dollars. We can get all of that at once if we do all of those things. And that's not how it works. I don't know. I don't want to claim that they're that stupid or short-sighted, but they keep doing it, is my point.
I actually think that they're trying to more align with the animated movies that have been pumped out for DC, where they have really super gruesome, dark moments, and then there's Harley Quinn being Harley Quinn and adding some comic relief. but it just, for me, it doesn't fit in this regime. I think you have to kind of attack the broader spectrum, and you can still have a wide range audience and be dark. I just feel like they haven't kind of tapped into that potential yet, and it's sad because it's right there. It just, they don't know quite how to execute it, I guess.
Right, and you keep mentioning Harley Quinn and how great a character she is. My primary exposure to Harley Quinn is the Arkham games, and she is great in those games. You know, for being essentially my first exposure to the character, she was reasonably developed. She was interesting to watch, you know, when you're watching and not playing the game. And knowing Margot Robbie for what she is, it is hard for me to equate. And also knowing like what you said about Suicide Squad, where she was fairly widely acclaimed as the best part of it, it's hard for me to imagine a movie that she headlines not doing better than this. So I think that is part of the reason why I kind of wanted to talk about this and try to diagnose what went wrong. That sort of thing is hard to do, especially if you're me and you haven't seen the movie. But I don't know, having seen it, would you recommend it? Would you recommend people get its box office numbers up, or would you recommend waiting for it to go to rental? Or, you know, I don't know what your utility was.
I would honestly wait for it to go to rental. Something more that would get me excited would have been the scene that we saw in Suicide Squad, where the progression of her just slowly going into psychosis with her relationship with the Joker, her going in the vat. That should have been a movie in itself.
Right.
As opposed to kind of this weird inside of Harley Quinn and then the previous introduction to Harley Quinn, because she's such a great character. Margot Robbie does such a great job portraying her. I literally can't think of another actor that would do a better job, actress that would do a better job. And it just, she's always just placed in a weak plot, and it just seems crappy.
Yeah,
I couldn't think of a better word.
It's and I'm at a point with DC where, and I haven't seen Shazam, but I'm at a point where I'm wondering what they can do right, because even Aquaman did very well for them, and it was fairly well acclaimed, and I saw it, and I really didn't like it. So at this point, it's a tough sell for me to go see a DC movie in general, and maybe that's another reason why this suffered, because from a marketing standpoint, it has the main piece, which is it has Harley Quinn and being portrayed by such a talented actress, but people aren't going to see it, and maybe that's because they're thinking, oh, well, I saw Batman vs. Superman, it was bad, and I saw Justice League, and it was bad, and Shazam was good, but this looks like another ensemble movie like Suicide Squad, which wasn't that good. So at this point, DC, it's going to get harder and harder for them, I think. Whereas, you know, with Marvel, and I hate to keep drawing this comparison, but with them, it's the opposite story, where you might get fatigued from all the movies that they have, but you know, you kind of know what you're going to get, and you see another one come out, and you're like, well, you know, it's going to be a Marvel movie, and I'm going to get some kind of enjoyment out of it, so I'm going to go see it.
I hate to keep going back to this, but for me personally, I've kind of gotten spoiled with how good the DC comics and animated films were, and nothing ever compares. Whereas with the Marvel side of it and the Avengers and that, it always felt too childish and too kiddie and too foo-foo for me to really enjoy. So the movie cinematic version the live action was kind of refreshing and exciting and new. I don't think me being a purist on that sense will ever be able to enjoy them as much as I enjoy the more comic book side of it.
Well, and you've mentioned probably on the air a few times that I should watch The Killing Joke, and I still haven't. But it's on Netflix now, and I've actually scrolled by it a couple of times. It's not until I have to dig deep to even scroll by it, but it's there and it's available for me to watch. And I know you've recommended that to me. It's probably safe to say you'd recommend it to any of the listeners. But that one is, as far as I remember, quite dark. And that's kind of what you're talking about here.
Also, Batman Under the Red Hood, just saying. Super good.
So there you have it. Don't go watch Birds of Prey. Go watch these animated movies instead, at least one of which is on Netflix. I don't know about the Red Hood one. So we'll see if if Birds of Prey bounces back at all. Because if it's actually a good movie, maybe word of mouth will spur it from an initially bad marketing stance. But for now, let's have to wait and see. I will say it's kind of a spoiler. I believe I put it in my fantasy movie league this week, which I actually set my lineup for the first time in a while, but I have a feeling I didn't do very well. So we'll see what happens. But before we get to that, and before we get to the rest of the show, there is one more topic that we would like to discuss with all of you, and that's, of course, that Valentine's Day is coming up. At the time this episode airs, Valentine's Day will be 2 days away, and as men, we felt it appropriate to talk about the Valentine's Day experience and give a little PSA. And I know Techtic feels very strongly about this, so I'm going to turn it over to him to start. And yeah, just go for it, man.
So whomever your loved one is, whoever you feel fond of, be sure to do something. And that doesn't mean put a car payment down on a dinner. That means something. It could cost you literally nothing. It's the thought that counts. Have a little picnic. Get some flowers. Pick some flowers. And I know it's wintertime, so that's going to be kind of difficult, but be creative. There's all sorts of knickknacks and things like that can easily be put together to show someone you care about them. So do that. For me, we are going to be having a home-cooked steak dinner with a side of asparagus and twice-baked potatoes. And yes, there will be bacon on them potatoes.
Now, walk me through this. I have a couple of follow-ups. Let's talk about the cooking. Are you going to be cooking the meal entirely, or is it going to be a romantic exercise?
I don't know how a romantic exercise isn't cooking.
Well, no, my point is, are you both going to cook it together, or are you going to be like, sit down, little lady, I'm cooking your dinner tonight? Cause
the latter. I'm going to say it just like that. Sit down, little lady.
Hey, I don't know how your guys' relationship works, but I've done the home cooked meal in the past. This year, I'm going with the classic, taking my lady out for a nice dinner. We're going to it's actually Asian Latin fusion restaurant. It's relatively new in town. Very excited about that. Now, as far as gift giving goes, I am classically a flowers man, and that will continue to be the case. But in addition, we each have gotten each other
chocolates,
kind of like a $25-$30 kind of thing. I got her gloves, which is a very romantic gift, and I actually gave them to her today early because it's supposed to snow a lot tomorrow, and I figured it would be a good idea for her to have them. And then, of course, there's always the handwritten card. Pro tip to everyone out there: if you buy a card from the grocery store or something, that's a nice gesture. The important thing is what's written on the inside of it. I've been told that I really kill it in the card writing game, but you know what? It's not all that difficult. To use the ultimate cliche, you just have to speak from the heart. And if you're spending time with this person on Valentine's Day, chances are you feel a certain way about them, and it's not that hard to write that down. And for me, it's easier to write it down than it is to say it a lot of the time. So it's kind of a good opportunity for you to do that. I do want to ask you one additional question, Technic, which is, have you ever had the experience? Because I have. I had a girlfriend years ago. Shout out to my ex-girlfriend from high school. I'm not going to say your name. You know who you are. Her birthday was on Valentine's Day. Have you ever had this experience?
I have not had this experience. However, our anniversary is shortly thereafter Valentine's Day, and that's why I'm doing the home-cooked meal on Valentine's Day and then taking her out on the actual anniversary. Now, the other thing that I'm doing is I'm taking her to the most romantic movie that is in theaters.
Birds of Prey.
No, Sonic. Sonic the Hedgehog is out for release on February 14th.
That's exactly why they slated it for this release date, is because they knew how sensual Sonic is.
Yeah.
So are you going on opening night to that? Are you going Friday night to that?
Yeah, that's the way it works out. And specifically where the romance is really manifested from is the appearance of Jim Carrey on the large screen.
You're absolutely right about that. I feel like that's not what our plan is, but I feel like I've missed an opportunity. Is home cooked meal, is that your typical... I feel like I'm just interviewing you about Valentine's Day, but this is good content. The listeners are going to love this. Is home cooked meal your typical go-to? Or do you kind of mix it up year after year?
For Valentine's Day, that is my go-to. This year,
Okay.
I'm going to brace for the elements and try to see if I could get a nice grilled steak.
Oh, wow. Okay. Get like a Foreman grill, man. Like a griddle.
Nah, it's about the level of caring. So
Now, I tend to myself, I have done the home cooked meal once or twice, but overall, I am a restaurants man, pretty much through and through. And the reason for that is pretty simple. I'm not a good cook, guys. And I know it's the effort that counts, but tell that to a lady who's chewing on a steak that tastes like a shoe, and she's not going to hear you. So yeah, we just kind of wanted to kind of shout out Valentine's Day and make sure you're all prepared. Make those dinner reservations, fellas, if you are a going out kind of person, and get your tickets to Sonic, because that's going to be the hot, the steamy Valentine's Day event of 2020.
I'm literally envisioning Nerd Bomber and I are literally the only adults in the theater.
And you know what? There's nothing more romantic than being the only adults in the theater surrounded by children. I'm going to check back with you, with hopefully both of you, assuming Nerd Bomber's feeling better, next week to see how that goes. Which brings me to my last question, which is, let's say on Valentine's Day, Nerd Bomber is still sick. Is there a contingency in place? You don't have to say what it is if you want it to be a surprise. But have you thought about that?
That's kind of the beauty of the home cooked meal, right? She won't have to go out. She won't have to be in public. And in the movie theater, you're basically in sweatpants and a hoodie, so no one really questions it. So
right, but what if I'm saying she's like at death's door. She can't even get out of bed. Like she's vomiting.
Well,
how do you spice that up?
From the Nerd Bomber I've been dealing with, as I said, I could do this, the Brooklyn Smoker. She'll be the one pushing through the door. So
a trooper. Okay, fair enough.
I'm not worried about such a scenario.
Well, that's good. Well, I will be checking in with you next week, and maybe you can check in with me to see how my dinner went. But for now, we are going to move on. And before we move on to what we've been up to, I do want to shout out our fantastic Patreon producer, Mr. Ben Checkness. So we've been shouting out Ben for, it feels like forever now, and that's because he is a fantastic and loyal patron to our cause. Ben supports us at the highest of our 3 levels of support on Patreon, which is the night level, and as a result, he gets a producer credit on every episode. He gets input into our weekly game segment, and he also gets access to our monthly secret segment and our monthly vlog. If you do not want to support us at the night level because you figure you are not as cool as Ben, that is reasonable. Ben is super cool. We do have a second level of support, which is known as the Squire level, which gives you access to the monthly secret segment and vlog. And then, of course, there is also the lowly page level of support, which gets you access to the monthly secret segment. So if you are interested in supporting us and what we do, we love doing this. And any little bit of support helps. You can head on over to patreon.com/onlinewarriorspodcast for more of the information. So let's dive into what we've been up to. And this will maybe be slightly abbreviated because there's only 2 of us this week and not 3 of us. But Techtic, do you want to start us off today?
Sure thing. So I have been in binge city. We, starting Friday, just have gone hard on watching the show The Good Place. And first and foremost, I want to give a shout out to Nerd Bomber for making my favorite moment of said show possible. So we've transitioned from Brooklyn Nine-Nine to The Good Place, and at the end of every episode of Brooklyn Nine-Nine, text comes across the screen and it goes, "From Leon." However, in The Good Place, the text comes across the screen, but no one says Fremulon.
You have a hard time saying Fremulon.
I do. However, Nerd Bomber has made it possible that at the end of every episode, I look over at her and she says the infamous quote, here we go, Fremulon. Nailed it.
Nailed it. You absolutely nailed it.
So that has made every episode very entertaining for me, and that's not even the content on the show. I'm very much enjoying the show. There is a lot to unpack there, which we'll save for a later cast show thingamadoo. But I do recommend it if you did enjoy Brooklyn Nine-Nine and shows like The Office. There's some of the same writers across the board. I think even Community has some.
Yeah, I'm trying to remember what the guy's name is. He also worked on Parks and Recreation. Mm-hmm. There's kind of a community there. I have watched Good Place. I stopped after 2 seasons because I felt that the show was in a bit of a decline. But again, you mentioned that you're going to be talking about Good Place on a different show, so we don't have to get into the details of that.
The one thing I will say is the most annoying actor in the world. He was the boyfriend for a little bit of time for Rosa. He appears on this show as well. He's literally everywhere. I don't understand why they keep...
So here's... we should unpack, because I like Jason Mantzoukas. You don't like Jason Mantzoukas?
He's just so, as the kids say, extra. And I just...
Okay, he is extra. I mean, on Brooklyn Nine-Nine especially, I feel like this is tough, because I feel like the characters that he plays on both of those shows are designed to be obnoxious.
It's every show. It's every show.
But if you can respect his ability as an actor to
play one role,
well, to make you hate him, and it seems like he does that. And to me, I'm like, wow, he's a good actor. I mean, I don't know. I also think I especially think his part in Brooklyn Nine-Nine is pretty funny. He plays Adrian Pimento, I think is his name, in Brooklyn Nine-Nine.
I have a feeling that his storyline with how he got into acting is very similar to that of Michael Cera, where he wasn't supposed to be there and just kind of showed up, and they're like, okay, I guess this is a character you could be, but really it's his normal personality, and he's not actually acting, he's just being him.
I think, I have a theory that's true of a lot of actors. I think there are a lot of actors who are typecast because that's just who they are as people, and Michael Cera is a great example. Perhaps Jason Mantzoukas is another one. I listened to a fantastic podcast that Jason Mantzoukas is on, to shout out another podcast, How Did This Get Made? It's about bad movies, and he is a regular on that show. Speaking of Brooklyn Nine-Nine, to kind of transition into my update, season 7 has begun, and the update there is that show is just fantastic. It is still so good. The premiere was a double episode. Both episodes were really fantastic, featured a lot of really great Captain Holt content. So best I'm going to be he's the best character. He's unbelievable. So I'm going to be looking forward to, it's actually Friday nights because it airs on Thursday, but I don't have cable because I'm a millennial. So it comes on Hulu Friday nights. I'm going to be looking forward to Friday nights. And I kind of was before because that's like the beginning of the weekend, but now especially I'm really going to be looking forward to it. Other things that I have done. I'm working through Metroid Prime 2 Echoes, having finished Metroid Prime 1. Prime 2 is longer. I think it's more difficult. So I think I mentioned when I did my run of Prime, I only died one time, and it was right near the very end. It was the second to last boss. And Prime 2, I think 40% of the way through the game, and I've already died. Still just once, but I was surprised and I was chagrined. Maybe I've lost a step as a gamer.
I would be so upset to be that far in and then die the first time.
Oh, it absolutely killed me. Especially since, if you've played Metroid Prime, hit me up on Twitter and let's talk about Meta Ridley, because just a really annoying boss for no reason. But I'm working through Prime 2. It's really fantastic. Still, they're great games. They haven't aged a day in my eyes, or if they have aged, they've aged like fine wine. The last thing I do want to mention is I saw a movie this weekend, 1917, which of course at the Oscars it managed to pick up a few awards, best cinematography and best visual effects, I believe they were, which makes sense because it's a very, very, visually at least, it's a very, very impressive movie. Plot-wise, not a whole lot to write home about, but it's one of those movies that it's similar to Birdman if you've seen it, where it looks as though it was shot in one continuous shot, which is a hell of an accomplishment in editing and cinematography, even when it's not done as well as it was done with 1917. So I would definitely recommend that. It was a good watch. Again, plot-wise, it's a war movie. You really know what you're going to get, but visually, it's fairly unique. So just wanted to shout that out quick. I do want to mention one more thing, actually. You know what I've been watching? I don't know, Techtic, if you have any experience with this. On YouTube lately, you ever watch people speedrun video games?
Yes, and it's frustrating how good they are,
it is
that they're
incredible.
Kind of cheating in some of the instances.
Well, so there's a lot of cheating, and we should talk about this on like as a main topic on an episode at some point, because I've been one of the ones I've been watching is like you watch people speedrun Super Mario 64, which we're going to talk about N64 later for the quiz, but this is insane. I mean, they get 120 stars in like an hour 40 minutes, and like you said, there's a lot of it that's they're cheating, right? They're clipping through walls and they're suddenly zooming to the other side of the level, and like you're like, that's not all that impressive. But there are other moments where the jumps that they're doing.
Oh yeah, you have to time everything perfectly.
It is unbelievable, and they're timing cycles of like certain things in the level that oscillate, so they don't like it. It requires an insane amount of skill, and I have to admit, like I've played Super Mario 64. I know exactly what's going to happen, but like it's magnetic to watch these guys work. And actually, the first thing that got me watching these was there's also a lot of people that speedrun Metroid Prime. And again, same thing where there are certain moments where they're clipping out of the level and they're, and that's not as interesting. It's kind of interesting to see that it can be done, but there's a little bit less skill associated with that. But then there are other things that they do that it's just, I don't even understand how you figure out you can do that. It's legitimately a world-class talent. So if you have the time, if you have an hour and 40 minutes and you don't feel like watching a movie, watch someone speedrun Super Mario 64. I implore you. So anyways, that's it for my update. I do want to give an update on Fantasy Movie League because, as I said, I actually set a lineup this week. It did not help me. That is the short answer. Congratulations to Hipster Pop Geek, who smartly played a lot of 1917.
Or she. They are good.
He or she clearly has their act together when it comes to Fantasy Movie League. I believe they're first in the overall, but we'll get to that. This week, they came in first with 65.5 million, just about. Nerd Bomber barely missed the top spot. 65, just a hair over 65. Mecha Yoda in third, which again, just a hair over 65. So a very tight top three there. Then we dropped down to our good friend Ben Checkness at just about 60 million. Florida Hawk at 59. Devin Reed at 57. Spitfire at 57, just a little shy of 57. And then is me with 56. And right below me, you, my good sir, Techtic.
Yeah, you beat me. It must feel good.
55.5. It doesn't feel bad. I'll say that much. We both played, it looks like a lot of people played Birds of Prey, but that may have been a mistake on my end. I played a lot of Parasite because I knew it was going to do well at the Oscars, and I had a feeling people would go see it in advance of the Oscars. That clearly did not work very well. Rounding out the top 10, Secret Asian Man with just a hair over 31. Did not play a full Cineplex. So let's take a look at the overalls so I can see how badly I'm doing. Hipster Pop Geek, as I mentioned, in the top spot with 556 million. 3 wins on the season as we move into week 7 of the 10-week season. Techtic, second place, 528. A very comfortable lead over the third place Nerd Bomber with 509, just about. So you're looking good to at least get the silver medal, maybe in these last few weeks if you really.
That's only a 1 week margin, really.
Well, I guess time will tell. Florida Hawk at 481, and Devin Reed rounding out the top 5 with just about 470. So again, if you want to hear your name read on the podcast and you want to get involved in Fantasy Movie League because it's super fun, you can head over to fantasymovieleague.com and look up our league, which is the Online Warriors podcast. It's a locked league, but the password is podcast, all lowercase. We are in, I can never remember, it's either season 3 or season 4 of having done this. They run 10-week seasons, and each week you fill a Cineplex with 8 movies based on a budget, and each movie has a price. And essentially you see who gets the highest box office total every week. It's a lot of fun, especially when you're good at it, which I am not. Techtic is really carrying the flag for the actual recording team here. So
the squad.
We'll see how he finishes out the season. But again, if you want to get in on this, now might be a good time to at least test the waters as we close out this existing season, and that way you can get ready for the new season coming up, I believe on March. Should be about March 13th, 14th, and then you can hit the ground running. So head on over and check that out. Now, we're going to have to do the quiz a little bit differently this week because, of course, we are missing the lovely Nerd Bomber. So Techtic, essentially the way we're going to be doing this is you're going to be playing against yourself.
I hope I win.
I am going to ask you, I don't have the list of questions in front of me. I'm going to be coming up with a lot of these on the fly, but I'm going to be asking you 7 questions. If you get 4 of them right, you will win and you will get to host the quiz next week. If you don't, you lose, and I will be hosting again next week. And as I mentioned,
happen. Your head's already inflating.
You can't let that happen. I like that you're motivated, because otherwise this wouldn't be very interesting. Let's get into it. As I mentioned before, the topic this week is Nintendo 64, all things Nintendo 64. So, again, I'm going to be kind of doing this on the fly, but question 1 is kind of a Price is Right style question, although we can't do a Price is Right style because you're not playing against anybody. So let's say plus or minus 2 years. In what year was the Nintendo 64 released?
1988.
Okay, so not even close. So that's so you're starting off with a big red X. This came out in Japan June 23rd, 1996. North America September 29th, 1996, and then in Europe and Australia it was actually 1997.
It felt like it's been around for so long by the time I got my hands on it, though. I guess it wasn't around that long.
I was going to say, I remember very vividly. I didn't get it I think my older brother got it for his birthday, and he would have been 6 or 7. So I remember that very well. But you should use that to help you out with the next question. I'm kind of giving you a little bit of help here. When was it discontinued worldwide? Same thing, plus or minus 2 years. Let's see how you do with this one.
These are tough questions. Price is Right style, or it has to be within that window?
Plus or minus 2 years. It can't be Price is Right style because you're not playing against anybody.
Let's go 2005.
Ooh.
Come on.
You just missed it. It's 2002. Discontinued April 30th, 2002. I said plus minus 2. I can't help you there. I can't give you that. But the good news is I can start tailoring this to you, and for the upcoming questions, I can help you out a little bit more with the margins. So the next question, very similar numerical question. Let's talk about the number of units sold worldwide. I will give you plus or minus 7 million, which in and of itself is a hint. Plus or minus 7 million on this.
I'm going to go 543 million.
33 million. Do you think every person in the world has a Nintendo 64? I mean, 543 million, that's if you gave every single person in America N64 and then, I don't know, picked 200, 300 million other people in the world. So, okay, you're not doing great here.
Nope.
We're 3 questions in, and you've gotten 3 wrong, which means you have to get the next 4 questions right to even have a chance. Not great, but let's continue. The best-selling game on the Nintendo 64.
GoldenEye.
Well, I didn't ask what the game was. That would be too hard. Also, it's not GoldenEye, so good thing that wasn't the question. It was Super Mario 64.
Super Mario 64.
How many units did that sell? Now, bear in mind, I'm going to try and help you out here.
33 million units sold.
33 million consoles sold. I'm going to give you plus minus 5 million here.
I'm going to go half of that with, let's go 18 million.
It's 12 million. To keep this interesting, I'm going to give it to you because you've been very close in the margins a couple of times here. And I want to keep this going, so I'm going to give you that. You got to toughen up here, though. What was the initial suggested retail price in US dollars of the Nintendo 64? And I will give you plus minus $50.
$199.99.
Okay, you got that one exactly. So I didn't have to give you any margin at all. It initially retailed for $200, which, I don't know anything about inflation or anything like that. What does a console go for nowadays, a new console? I mean, the Switch right now is $300. So when you think about it, that's a bargain. How many games did the N64 launch with? I'm going to give you ±2 on this one.
It launched with 7 games.
Okay, that's a big swing and a miss. It launched with only 3 games, and actually, in the United States,
confident, didn't I?
you did sound extremely confident. In the United States, it actually only launched with 2, but it launched with 3 worldwide because there was one that was exclusive to Japan. Super Mario 64 was, of course, one of them. Pilot Wings 64, which I've never heard of, and in Japan, Saikyo Habu Shogi, which don't ask me what that is.
How can I forget about Saikyo Habu Shogi? Damn it.
Now, you've lost. Because
that's correct.
That was your 4th miss. However, let's do this last one for fun because this one is a little bit different than the others. It's not a numerical question. I'm going to give you 5 chances to name the last game produced for the N64. The final game. It came out in 2002.
Crazy Taxi. Not Crazy Taxi. The one with the clown and the ice cream truck.
I don't know what game you're referring to, but it's not that one. I'm going to count that. I'm going to count that as a guess. I'll give you a hint. I'm fairly certain you've played this game before. We've talked about it on the podcast. Every time you get one wrong, I'm going to give you a hint. How about that?
Super Smash Brothers?
No, that's a pretty good guess, though. I think that probably would have come out earlier, but I honestly don't know.
Star Fox Adventure.
Okay, that's your 3rd guess. I was going to give you a hint, but it's...
GoldenEye.
That's guess 4. Do you want a hint before you get your last guess?
Yes.
Okay. Sports.
Madden.
Okay. I'm going to give you a 6, guys, because that clue was really crappy. Extreme sports. Radical. Gnarly.
Tony Hawk?
Tony Hawk Pro Skater.
Really?
Was the final N64 cartridge
I didn't know they made that
ever
for
made.
N64.
Exactly, because they came out and they right away, the Nintendo was like, all right, shut it down. Shut down the N64. It might be a rare item for all I know. I have a lot of other facts here that we didn't get to that are fairly interesting, but that they were hard to ask in this context. Apparently, at the end of World War II, South Korea banned Japanese cultural imports, meaning the N64 was banned. But because of that, it was rebranded as the Comboy 64 and sold by Hyundai. That's right, Hyundai, the car company.
How many Comboys were sold?
I don't have that information in front of me at this point. That was just one. That was probably the most interesting fact, other than the ones that I mentioned. Also, that the number that I mentioned about how many units had sold, just under 2/3 of that actually sold in North and South America. You would think more would be in Japan, but Japan tends to go in for RPGs, which was really not N64's shtick. So there you have it.
I have a question for you. How many kids got arthritis from that weird controller geometry?
You know, actually, it's funny that you mentioned this. There was another fact that I had. Let me see if I can find it. This is some of these are from thefactsite.com, which sounds extremely bogus, but I'm taking it as at face value at this point. Apparently, have you ever played Mario Party on the N64?
Yeah.
So if you've played that, you know what this is about. Many of the minigames in Mario Party required players to use the analog stick, most often with the palm of their hands, which would sometimes cause the players to get blisters on their hands. After a successful lawsuit against Nintendo, Nintendo was legally required to give gloves to players with the game as a safety precaution. I never got a pair of gloves. I must have been pre-lawsuit that I got that game. But that's crazy.
You literally had like a burn mark in the palm from some of those mini games.
Oh yeah, I'm trying to think of. Wasn't there one where you had to puff? You had to. Well, no, pumping up Bowser was not a control stick one. But I remember. Oh, the fishing one. That was one where you had to really get the control stick going. In any case, Mario Party, fantastic game. N64, fantastic console, and this was a fantastic sausage fest of an episode. I had a great time chatting with you, man. And we hope you all had a great time listening. If you liked what you listened to, you can, again, hit us up on the social medias. I already mentioned all the accounts earlier in the episode. If you want to leave us a review, you can head over to Apple Podcasts and hit us up there. We'd love to hear from you. And in general, keep on listening. We appreciate you all, and we'll see you next week, hopefully back at full strength.
Bye.